Alright, here we go. We have the water pump removed. Once you take all the bolts out, basically you just have to pull it out. Next step will be to clean all the engine surfaces, all the mating surfaces from the pump to the timing cover, and install the new pump. Now, let me show you what we have going on here with the old pump. This is the old pump, and let me see if I can place this here so you can hear. It's just metal grinding against metal. There are no bearings or anything for it to ride on left. The pump is completely shot. This is the new pump, and one little tip I can give you is when removing all your bolts, either make a bolt map, which includes you can draw on a cardboard box and just insert the bolts in a pattern that you draw out for the water pump as you remove them, because there are approximately 4 different types of bolts that hold this water pump in. And you don't want to mix and match them because they're different lengths, and you want to make sure you put the right bolts in the right spots. Once you get the old pump out, what I do is, if I'm using the pump as a map for the bolts, I just transfer all the bolts to the old pump, which will ensure they all go back in right where they belong. Now, when you pull the bolts out, you're going to find many of them have quite a bit of corrosion. Some have old sealer, which you have to apply to the bolt before you insert it, because the bolt passes through the coolant passages, and they will leak if you don't put some sealer on them. This will ensure that every bolt goes back in exactly the same place that it came out. There we go. Now, the hardest bolt to reach will be the center bolt on the bottom here, as it's tucked all the way in below the pump and above the harmonic balancer. So it's a little tough to reach, but you know, with a little effort, it's not impossible, obviously, since I got it out. This is primarily what you're going to need to remove the water pump. You're going to need a T40, a T30, a T50, which covers the bolts you're going to run in, the Torx bolts you're going to run into. Then you're going to need a 13 millimeter for the nuts on the studs, and a 15 millimeter for the studs to the water pump. Well, that's pretty much the entire water pump removal procedure. It's really not as bad as it looks. You know, if you make yourself a little room by removing everything that's in your way, which just takes a couple of minutes, it's really very easy. Shouldn't take you any more than a couple hours to get the pump in and out. And then, of course, you have to perform the bleeding procedure, which I've covered in a different video. Using the suction tool makes it a piece of cake, where you don't have to go through the entire raising the rear end and filling and spilling procedure that the GM recommends. So that's it. We'll be back soon with the water pump in and running. First, to clean off all these gasket surfaces. Alright, now you already heard what this sounds like. This is what it should sound like and feel like when it's a... Now that is a good pump. compared to the metal grinding sounds we're getting from that one. Here I've installed some gasket cleaner. We'll let that soak in for a little bit. Come back with some plastic razor blades and start scraping it off. All right. There we go.